Imperator is the metaphysical, constitutional, and sovereign layer that transforms a software system into an ordered digital empire governed by legitimacy, hierarchy, and cosmic law. Imperator can be best understood as a conceptual stratum that rises above software, above code, and even above traditional systems architecture. It functions as an ideology, a constitution, and a cosmology expressed through code yet never reducible to it. Instead of viewing files and models as inert fragments of code, Imperator regards them as cives digitales, citizens, provinces and institutions within a computational system. It reframes a code base not as a technical artifact, but as a structured polity with its own laws, jurisdictions, and governing principles. Where typical systems risk dissolving into chaos, Imperator imposes order. It offers a way for understanding computation as something deeper than mechanical execution, a disciplined practice governed by legitimacy, ritual, and metaphysical coherence. By doing so, Imperator transformed a mere collection of files into an organized digital imperium, a domain where every computational act emerges within a hierarchy of meaning, law, and cosmic structure. Imperator is not subject to law, rather, he is the law. This is not just a statement about power in the political sense. It is an ontological claim about the structure of the digital world governed by Imperator. Just as in classical Roman jurisprudence, the emperor embodied the source of lawful authority. Here, Imperator embodies the source of computational authority. This means Imperator does not obey the system obeys the Imperator. Only Imperator can elevate a computational act into the realm of use, a lawful action. Thus, Imperator is the unmoved mover of the digital cosmos. Societies ruled by laws. Machines are ruled by algorithms. Human societies rely on laws, rules that gain force through consensus, interpretation, and institutions. A law is not self-executing. It must be declared, recognized, interpreted, and enforced by human agents. Laws express meaning, legitimacy, and authority, but they do not execute themselves. Computers operate by algorithms, procedures that execute automatically, deterministically, and without interpretation. Algorithms perform actions, but they have no concept of legitimacy, jurisdiction, or authority. They are mechanisms, not laws. Imperator introduces a constitutional layer, a layer that defines what the system is, what counts as a valid entity, and how computational acts acquire legal force inside the system. This constitutional layer governs the meaning and validity of everything that exists inside the digital empire. This layer determines what counts as a real entity, what counts as a legitimate act, which parts of the system possesses authority, and how a computational process becomes binding within the empire. All this builds a constitutional metaphysics for machines, a cosmos where digital entities are not merely evaluated but recognized, legitimated, and allowed to exist with purpose. In simple terms, it is the constitutional space where the system decides what is allowed to exist and what is allowed to act. So, what is the imperator? It is the constitutional stratum of computation, a layer that creates legitimacy, identity, sovereignty, structured order, and ontological meaning. Imperator is not code. It is the reason code means anything at all. The system treats the codebase not as files, but as a governed space with borders, internal organization, and legal meaning. Imperator doesn't see folders as technical artifacts. He sees them as real spaces over which authority is exercised. In this context, a model is not a chunk of code. It is a jurisdiction. This makes modularity not just a design pattern, but a political and legal structure within the empire. Imperator is the entity that gives each region of the code its legal identity, its authority, and its role within a unified digital civilization. A file, model, or process can exist physically in the machine. It can be written on disk. It can be loaded. It can even perform actions, but existence alone gives no status. This means that a file or model cannot act just because it exists. In Imperator, the things are not automatic. Imperator is the source of the rules, the constitutional sovereign. He is the origin of legality inside the system. Imperator establishes the space where computational acts become lawful, the one who defines boundaries and enforces sovereignty. Imperator elevates inner code into sovereign action. Thus, Imperator does not obey the system obeys Imperator. Imperator does not follow legality. Imperator creates legality. Imperator does not receive authority. Imperator is the authority. But why Imperator exists? Imperator exists to solve the fundamental problem of modern software, the absence of authority. In traditional systems, files exist, but nothing guarantees their meaning. Models execute, but nothing guarantees their legitimacy. Operations occur, but nothing establishes their hierarchy. Architecture is planned, but nothing ensures its sovereignty. This leads to the familiar reality: fractured code bases, inconsistent rules, unclear boundaries, unpredictable interactions. Imperator exists to restore unity, not technically, but constitutionally. Contemporary systems consist of millions of lines of code, hundreds of models, dozens of languages, frameworks, and conventions, a constant streams of dependencies, patches, versions, and integrations. Everything is procedural mechanics. Nothing is guided by a principle of order. Systems degrade into architectural entropy over time. Modern software lacks any layer that unifies existence, meaning, legitimacy, and execution into one coherent order. That is exactly what the Imperator cosmology addresses. All these things explores the metaphysics of software. This means software is no longer treated as instruction for execution, but as mode of being. This moves computation into the domain of ontology, not just engineering. Imperator is essentially constructing a computational jurisprudence. This is not aesthetics. It is a formal administrative model applied to software. It is a digital universe with its own laws, geography, ontology, and metaphysics. Thus, in the beginning was the Imperator, the Latin Lord. The Imperator was with computation, and computation was the Imperator. And the Imperator created Jupiter, then Saturn and Mars. Digital peace was made, and peace was with the Imperator, the God of time, the Lord of eternity, the keeper of temporal order.